That was good.
Ouch.
That hurt.
The poor guy. I mean, he planned this whole thing. He put his whole heart into it. And she said, no. And there he is, in front of thousands of people, totally rejected publicly, 130,000 YouTube views. And here we are on Sunday morning watching his video. Maybe the moral of the story is don't ask publicly, or you better be sure that she's going to say yes. But ouch, nothing is as difficult or as painful as being rejected. Having that feeling that we're not enough. Having that feeling that we're not good enough. Having that feeling that we don't measure up. There's no way to hide the feeling of it. It hurts. It stings. It devastates. It paralyzes. It leaves scars. We as human beings all face rejection at some point in our lives. And we can get rejected in many, many different ways. For example, we cannot get chosen for something, right? We were not the kid picked at recess for kickball. We were not asked out to the dance. We were not asked to the party, to the social gathering. We were not chosen for the sports team. Or we can be rejected professionally, right? We have an idea at work and it gets shot down. Or we're not chosen for the job. We're not chosen for the promotion. We're not chosen to work on the special team. Or we can try to be friends with someone only to be rejection. We can have social rejection. People can shun us. People don't call us back. People don't want to be with us. People don't want to be our friends, and that can be very, very hurtful. We can also be rejected in love, like in dating and relationships, right? In college, you try to go ask a girl out, and she says no. She has better things to do. I remember a story I read. There was two male U.S. college students, and they were backpacking in the country of Sweden in Europe one summer. And this guy, one of the guys, he was quite enthralled with Swedish women, and he was always looking for a way to ask them out. And so one day, him and his friends, they're walking on this path, they're hiking, and two Swedish women come, their way. And this one guy, he tries to start a conversation with a Swedish woman. He says, excuse me, do you speak English? And they're kind of crossing, and the Swedish woman looks at him as they pass, and she says, not today. And she just walking. Pretty smart girl. No, in all seriousness, when dating people, you can experience rejection, and it hurts. Remember when you got that Dear John letter? Remember when they said, we have to talk? Or remember when they said, it's not you, it's me. It hurts. Maybe one of the most painful rejections that we can have as a human being is when one marriage partner rejects another partner. Probably the weightiest rejection is that of a spouse. When one person just walks out on a marriage, it's devastating. It hurts. That's the person that's supposed to be closest to us. Another devastating rejection is inside of a family. When relationships are broken inside of a family. When a mother turns her back on her child. When a father turns his back on the child. When kids turn their back on their parents. When siblings reject each other. It hurts. Recently, because of our current family situation, we've gotten to experience just a little of what foster children deal with in regards to rejection. I got to read a report from DCS about a child, and when you read it, you get teary-eyed. In cases where the rights of the parents are terminated, how is a little child supposed to sort that out? They're rejected by the people that are supposed to take care of them. They're rejected by the people who are supposed to love them. It hurts for an entire lifetime. Being rejected hurt. It punches you in the gut. There's no getting around it. We've all faced rejection at some point in our life. Well, how do we handle rejection? How did Jesus handle rejection? How does God want us to handle rejection? The word rejection comes from a Latin word. It means to throw back. It's a little bit like basketball, right? You're dribbling up, you're taking it strong to the hole, and you go up like this, and then some guy comes out of nowhere and just swats it into the first row like a volleyball. We call it a block shot in basketball. But in slang term, we all know it's a rejection. You got rejected, right? You took it strong with all your might, and the guy just swatted that mess out of there. And when we experience rejection, the feeling not only stops us in our present situation, but it sometimes causes us to retreat from progressing because we fear future failure. So we only go up there once, and then afterwards we're like, I'm not going back in there. I'm not going to take the basketball strong anymore. I might get rejected again. It might happen again. In psychology, this phenomenon is known as learned helplessness. Learned helplessness. Rejection can paralyze us for the future. I put myself out there and I got burned. I went in for the layup and I got rejected. Not going to do that again. Not going to do that again. And we are most raw, we are most tender, we are most vulnerable at the point of rejection because we feel so exposed, because it hurts. And when we're hurt, what we do is we usually hurt others. Hurt people hurt people. You've probably heard that said before. Well, Jesus was no stranger to rejection. Let's read in Mark 6, 1-6. He went away from there and came to his hometown, and his disciples followed him. And on the Sabbath he began to teach in the synagogue. And many who heard him were astonished, saying, "Where did this man get these things? What is the wisdom given to him? How are such mighty works done by his hands? Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary, and brother of James and Joseph and Judas and Simon? Are not his sisters here with us?" And they took offense at him. And Jesus said to them, "A prophet is not without honor except in his hometown and among his relatives and in his own household." And he could do no mighty work there, except that he laid his hands on a few sick people and healed them. And he marveled because of their unbelief. Here is Jesus giving his heart and soul to people, trying to help them. His motives are 100% pure. He wants what's best for other people. He's performing miracles. He's changing lives. He's helping people. He's compassionate. And his hometown rejects him. These were the people that grew up with him. These were the people that knew him, and they reject him. Verse 3 says they took offense at him. Jesus says, "A prophet is not without honor except in his hometown and among his relatives and in his own household." It had to hurt from a human side. These are the people that you grew up with. Jesus understands rejection. Think about the life of Jesus just for a second. Everywhere he goes, people are against him. Everywhere he goes, there are critics. Everywhere he goes, he's oppressed. There's opposition. Everywhere he goes, they question his authority. Everywhere he goes, they question his authenticity. He's constantly rejected by people. And he's rejected by his family. They think he's crazy. He's rejected by the religious leaders. They hate him. They put him to death later on. He's rejected by his hometown. They don't believe him. And he's even rejected by the disciples at the end of his life. And let's remember, he wasn't just rejected by strangers, but also those closest to him. And that's what hurts the most. People closest to us reject us. I mean, the disciples, his closest family, so to speak, they flee when trouble comes. Judas betrays him. He spends 3 years helping Judas, training Judas, loving Judas, and Judas betrays him for 30 pieces of silver. Jesus understands the sorrow and the pain of being rejected by those that he loved. And at the end of his life, he was rejected by society. They made him carry a cross. They made him a crown of thorns and put it onto his head. They nailed his hand and his feet to the cross. And they crucified him. And here's the thing about Jesus. He was doing all the right things. He was perfect. He was helping people. He was compassionate. He was healing people. He truly loved people in the purest sense of the word. He wanted what was best for them. And he put himself out there. And he was rejected. Isaiah 53:3 says this: He was despised and rejected by mankind, a man of suffering and familiar with pain. Like one from whom people hide their faces, he was despised, and we held him in low esteem. Jesus understands rejection at a level so deep that we can't fully understand it. Because the pain that we face as humans from rejection, we're sinful human beings, it can't really compare with the pain that Jesus had. Because Jesus was without sin. We have sin. And he willingly suffered because of his great love for us. Jesus understands rejection. Hebrews 4:15 says, we have a high priest in Jesus who sympathizes with human weakness. Jesus gets it. Jesus understands our disappointment. Jesus understands the human condition. Jesus understands our rejections. So, what we can get from Jesus is, how do we handle rejection? He taught us how to handle rejection. First of all, we as humans can find comfort in Jesus and the rejections that he faced. When you are hurt and you feel rejected with nowhere to go, you can turn to Jesus. He understands what you are going through. He knows our rejections, and he offers our heart a safe place to rest. And we can find comfort in knowing that we're not alone in our suffering. Second, if you live for people's acceptance, you will die from their rejection. If you live for people's acceptance, you will die from their rejection. Some people are still living their lives for the acceptance of a person who may not even be living, but may be living. Jesus lived his life for an audience of one. We have to focus our mind on pleasing God and not pleasing man. Ultimately, it only matters what God thinks of you. Ultimately, it only matters what God thinks of you. Paul writes in Galatians 1:10, For am I now seeking the approval of man or of God? Or am I trying to please man? If I were still trying to please man, I would not be a servant of Christ. Hebrews 13:5-6 says, the Lord is my helper, I will not fear. What can man do to me? We live our lives before an audience of one. We live before God. It matters what He thinks of us. It only matters what God thinks of you. Third, Jesus didn't let rejections stop Him. Our temptation is to let rejections paralyze us. It can keep us from going forward in life. Right? We say, I'll never trust again. I'll never believe again. I'll never date again. I'll never ask again. And I'm just going to shrink back. I got burned, so I'm just going to shrink back. I'm going to fold. I'm going to throw in my cards. Well, see, with each rejection that Jesus faced, we see Him respond with a movement toward His goal, with a movement toward His mission. Jesus remains steadfast. He remains calm in the face of rejection. He kept moving. It didn't paralyze Him. And bitterness in us from rejection can paralyze us. Unforgiveness can paralyze us. Jesus hurts, but He doesn't let it stop Him from fulfilling His calling. And He never stops loving people, even when He's rejected by them. As a Christian, rejection is a momentary bump in the road. But we have a choice. We can let that bump in the road derail us, and we can walk around wounded with a limp. Or we can choose to claim the heritage of a child of God and move forward in grace. We have a choice when we're rejected. The fourth thing that Jesus showed us was Jesus forgave. And it's very hard to forgive when you're rejected by someone. But it is possible. Now, this doesn't excuse the offense. It doesn't mean you have to trust that person again. But forgiveness ultimately releases us. It frees us. God forgave us, and we can forgive other people. If you remember Jesus, He's on the cross at the end of His life. He's in excruciating pain. He's taking on the sins of the world. He's got nails in His feet and His hands. And what does He say? One of the 7 things He says on the cross. He says, Father, forgive them, because they don't know what they're doing. How do you say that? Again, Jesus modeled it for us. He said, forgive. Fifth, one person's rejection does not mean you are unlovable. Sometimes that's what we believe. We believe that lie. This person rejected me, well then nobody else can really love me. I'm just not worthy. See, what we choose to do with the hurt and disappointment from rejection will either allow us to grow stronger in our faith and our relationship with God, or it will mean that we just walk around wounded. We walk around limping. But see, as believers, we are not defined by our past failures. We're not defined by our disappointments. We're not defined by our rejection and by others. As Christians, we are defined by what God thinks of us. And you know what He says? We're children of God. We are new creations. We are deeply loved, and we are accepted by Christ. Our identity in Christ is important to remember in the face of rejection. You are not defined by your rejection. Your identity is given to you by God. 6, rejection is to be expected in the Christian life. Jesus said in John 15:18, if the world hates you, keep in mind that they hated me first. Christians can expect sometimes to be persecuted for their beliefs and their faith in Christ. Jesus faced it, and we may face it also as Christians. Matthew 10:22, and you will be hated by all for my name's sake. That's what he told the disciples. And they were sometimes. We were missionaries in a very atheistic country where there were hardly any Christians in the Czech Republic. And honestly, some days it felt like we were selling ice to Eskimos. For every person that was interested in Christianity, it seemed like there was 1,000 other people that weren't. And sometimes they were antagonistically opposed, and they would let you know. And so living in that culture, we had a constant lesson in what it was like to be rejected. I mean, you could love people, you could meet their needs, you could try your best to spend time with them, and many of them would still reject the gospel, and sometimes they would reject us because we spoke of the gospel. And you know what? It hurt. As a human being, it hurts. But I had to remind myself that they weren't rejecting me, they were rejecting Jesus. And I also had to remind myself I wasn't selling them a used car that didn't work. I was telling them about the gospel, which could change their lives for eternity. The product of the gospel, the message of Jesus, it's purely 100% good. It's what people really need. They just don't know that they need it. Some other things about rejection. God can use rejection in our lives to show us different things. There's actually good in reflecting on possible factors that led to a rejection. So we might have gotten fired from a job, and we may have thought that our performance was good, but others may have seen that they might have seen things differently. So maybe there are things that we need to change or improve or work on. Second, sometimes rejection is God's way of saying wrong direction. We can use rejection as an opportunity to reevaluate the direction in which we are headed. Michael Jordan, he got cut from his 10th grade basketball team, his varsity basketball team, but he used it as kind of to fuel his passion to get better. J.K. Rowling, she wrote Harry Potter. Well, it took her 12 times. She got rejected 12 times before the book was published. Steve Jobs got fired from Apple. Warren Buffett, he got rejected by Harvard University. These people all had to pivot and change directions. God may have something else in mind for your future. Maybe one door closes and another door opens. Third, sometimes human rejection can be God's protection. Sometimes what seems like rejection can actually be protection. God saved us from something worse. And it stings at the moment, but it was probably for the best. We have to remember, just in closing, that God himself understands rejection. He gets rejected constantly by humanity. In fact, society is doing a very good job of rejecting God, of turning their back on God. And that's what many people have done. They've just turned their back on God. But you know what God does? He doesn't get mad. What he does is he just puts his hands out like this, and he says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened." He's always available. He's still loving those people. He still wants to see them come to know him, because it's in their best interest. There's one rejection, though, that is the worst rejection a human being can possibly have. And it's the one that you don't want to experience in your life. The worst rejection will be if you are not on the right side of eternity. When you pass from this life, you will die, and you will stand face to face with a holy God. You will stand before an audience of one, and you don't want God to say, you know what, I never knew you. Depart from me. That's the saddest words you can possibly hear. It's for eternity. That is the rejection I don't want anyone here to face. Eternal rejection. Sent to hell, apart from God for eternity. What I do want you to hear when you stand face to face with God is the words that we all want to hear, and that is, well done, thy good and faithful servant. Let me pray for us. Father, rejection hurts, and it stings, and it just puts a pit in our stomach. And Father, it's hard to handle. It's definitely hard to handle. But we have a God who loved us so much, who sent his son Jesus to die on the cross for our sins and to be rejected by mankind for us. He loved us that much. And he understands our rejections and our hurt. So we bring all those and just submit them to you. And thank you for the model we have in Jesus. He showed us how to handle rejection. And Father, if there's anyone here who hasn't made that decision to have a relationship with God through Jesus Christ, I pray, Father, that you would convict them of their need for a relationship with you, so when they die, when they meet God, they will be accepted and not rejected. In Jesus' name, amen. Have a wonderful week and enjoy this fall weather.
Thank you. on, Marla. Go.
Good morning. I don't know if please help get the let's see. I know. Well, if you want it, but the neckline's bothering me. I like the neckline's bothering me.